I accidentally found my mom's secret phone, and now our entire family is ruined. I never meant to find it. That's the thing that keeps me awake at night. If I'd gone to bed 10 minutes earlier, or if my phone hadn't died, maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe we'd still be a normal family, or at least pretending to be one. For context, I'm 19. I live with my parents and my younger sister, Lily. From the outside, we looked boring in the best possible way. Dad worked long hours as an electrician. Mom worked from home doing insurance paperwork. They'd been married for 23 years. No screaming matches. No cheating scandals. No police showing up. Nothing. The kind of family nobody talks about, because nothing interesting ever happens. Or so I thought. It started on a Tuesday night. I was finishing a college assignment when my phone died. The charger in my room had broken earlier that week. Dad was asleep. Lily was asleep. Mom was downstairs watching TV. So I went looking for another charger. Our house has this junk closet under the stairs. It's where random stuff goes to die. Old remotes, Christmas lights, boxes nobody opens. I dug through a plastic container looking for cables. That's when I noticed something strange. A small black phone, not old, not dusty, not buried, almost like somebody had placed it there recently. At first, I assumed it belonged to Dad. Maybe a work phone, maybe a spare. I picked it up. The screen lit up. No lock screen picture. No notifications. Just a passcode prompt. Weird. I don't know why, but curiosity hit me. I tried Mum's birthday. Wrong. Dad's birthday. Wrong. Then I tried Lily's birthday. Wrong. I should have stopped there. Normal people would have stopped there. Instead, I stared at the screen, thinking, my mum uses the same 4 numbers for everything. Garage code, ATM pin, even her old laptop password. So I entered those numbers. The phone unlocked. I remember standing completely still, just staring, because the wallpaper wasn't a family picture. It wasn't flowers. It wasn't a dog. It was a selfie of my mum, smiling, standing next to a man I'd never seen before, his arm wrapped around her waist, like a couple. I thought maybe it was a coworker, maybe a relative, maybe I was misunderstanding. Then I opened the messages, and my entire life exploded. The contact name was simply Michael. Hundreds, maybe thousands, of messages, years worth, not months, years. I remember standing completely still, just staring, because the wallpaper wasn't a family picture. It wasn't flowers. It wasn't a dog. It was a selfie of my mum, smiling, standing next to a man I'd never seen before, his arm wrapped around her waist, like a couple. I thought maybe it was a coworker, maybe a relative, maybe I was misunderstanding. Then I opened the messages, and my entire life exploded. The contact name was simply Michael. Hundreds, maybe thousands, of messages, years worth, not months, years. The newest message had arrived 20 minutes earlier. I miss you already. Mom had replied, only 14 more days. My stomach dropped. I scrolled upward. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone. Message after message. Photos, voice notes, plans, hotel reservations. Conversations that absolutely no married woman should be having with someone who wasn't her husband. I felt sick, like physically sick. I remember sitting on the floor because my legs suddenly felt weak. I kept telling myself there had to be an explanation. There had to be. People don't just live double lives for years. Not your own mother. Not the woman who packed your lunches. Not the woman who cried when you graduated high school. Then I found something worse. Much worse. There was a note app. One file, locked. But the phone was already unlocked. The note opened, and at the top was a title, Exit Plan. I wish I could forget that moment. I really do. The document wasn't a diary. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't someone venting. It was organized, detailed, like a business project. Sections, dates, budgets, lists. One section listed bank accounts. Another listed assets. Another listed debts. And then I saw something that made my heart stop. My name, Lily's name, Dad's name. Under each name were notes, actual notes, like she was evaluating us. Dad, will fight divorce, consult attorney before announcement. Me, likely sides with father initially. Lily, young enough to adapt. I stared at those words for almost a minute, maybe longer. I couldn't process them. This wasn't an affair, not just an affair. This was preparation, planning, years of planning. Then I noticed the creation date. The note was 3 years old. 3 years. 3 years of secret planning. 3 years of lying. 3 years of pretending everything was normal. I heard footsteps upstairs. I nearly threw the phone. Mom. She was heading toward the kitchen. I quickly locked the screen and shoved the phone back into the box. Then I walked upstairs pretending I'd found a charger. My heart was pounding so hard I thought she'd hear it. That night I didn't sleep, not even for a minute. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. The messages, the photos, the note, the plan. By morning I looked terrible. Dad noticed immediately. He asked if I was sick. I almost told him. I almost blurted everything out right there at breakfast. But then I looked at Mom. She smiled at me, asked if I wanted more toast. Like nothing had happened. Like she wasn't secretly planning to destroy our family. And that's when I made the biggest mistake of my life. Instead of confronting her, instead of telling Dad, I decided to investigate. I wanted proof, real proof, not screenshots from a phone I wasn't supposed to have. I wanted to understand what was happening before I blew up everyone's lives. So for the next week, I watched, and what I discovered was so much worse than I ever imagined. Because Michael wasn't the only secret, not even close. For the next week, I became obsessed, not in a dramatic movie way. I still went to class, still ate dinner, still laughed at jokes. But every second I wasn't busy. I was thinking about that phone, about Mom, about Michael, about the exit plan. The weird thing was that once I knew something was wrong, I started noticing things, little things, things that had probably been happening for years. Mom always took a walk around 8 p.m. every single night. Rain or shine. I used to think she liked exercise. Now I wasn't so sure. Dad never questioned it. Why would he? They'd been married for 23 years. Trust becomes automatic after a while, like breathing. 3 nights later, I decided to follow her. I know, creepy, but by then, I felt like I was living in some weird nightmare. I needed answers. Mom left the house at 8:03 p.m. I waited 30 seconds, then followed, keeping my distance, trying not to be obvious. She didn't go to the park, didn't go for a walk, didn't exercise. Instead, she walked 3 blocks to a small coffee shop, one that stayed open late. I watched through the window, and there he was, Michael. He looked normal. That's what shocked me. I expected some rich businessman, some movie star-looking guy, someone extraordinary. Instead, he looked like a regular middle-aged man. Jeans, gray jacket, slightly balding, the kind of guy you'd pass in a grocery store and never remember. Mom sat down across from him. Then, after a few minutes, she reached across the table and held his hand. I felt like someone punched me. Not because of the affair. I already knew about that. It was because she looked happy, genuinely happy. The kind of smile I hadn't seen her give Dad in years. I left before they noticed me, went home, sat in my room, and stared at the wall for hours. The next morning something happened. Something small, but important. Dad asked Mum if she wanted to go away for their anniversary. Just a weekend trip. Nothing fancy. Mom immediately said no. Too much work. Too busy. Couldn't afford it. Then, later that night, I checked the secret phone again. Yeah. I went back. I shouldn't have, but I did. There was a message from Michael. Can't wait for our lake trip next month. Lake trip. The same weekend as my parents' anniversary. I almost threw up. But then I found something that made the affair seem almost unimportant. A banking app. At first I didn't understand what I was looking at. The account wasn't in Mom's name, or Dad's. It was under a company I'd never heard of. I clicked around, and my blood went cold. There was over $180,000 in the account. $180,000. My parents constantly talked about money problems. Dad worked overtime. Mom complained about bills. We delayed fixing our roof because it was too expensive. Meanwhile, there was a secret account holding nearly 200 grand. I started digging deeper, and the more I dug, the worse it got. The account had existed for almost 5 years. Money had been transferred into it regularly. Small amounts, hundreds here, thousands there. Never enough to attract attention, but over time it added up. A lot. I checked the transfer history. Most of it came from a joint account. The account Dad thought was helping pay family expenses. I just sat there staring, trying to process what I was seeing. Then I noticed another name attached to the company. Not Michael, not Mum. Someone else. The name was familiar, very familiar, because it belonged to my uncle, Dad's younger brother. I froze. No way. I clicked again. Double-checked, triple-checked. Same name, same spelling. My Uncle Rick. The uncle who came to every Thanksgiving. The uncle who helped Dad rebuild our deck. The uncle who called Mum sis. My hands started shaking again. What was Uncle Rick doing in all this? The next day, I drove to his house. I didn't know why. I didn't even have a plan. I just needed to look him in the eye, see if he acted normal. He did. Too normal. He invited me inside, asked about school, offered me a soda, talked about football. Meanwhile, all I could think was, what do you know? What are you hiding? Then I noticed something. A framed photo on a shelf. It showed Rick at a barbecue, standing next to several people. One of them was Michael, the same Michael, smiling, arm around Rick's shoulder, like old friends. At that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't a secret affair hidden from the family. At least one other person knew, maybe more. And if Rick knew, how long had he known? Years? Months? Since the beginning. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I finally decided Dad deserved the truth. I gathered screenshots, photos, bank records, messages, everything. I put them in a folder on my laptop. I planned to show him after work the next day. No more investigating. No more waiting. Just the truth. Around midnight, I heard movement downstairs. I looked out my bedroom window and saw headlights. A black SUV pulling into our driveway. Mom quietly stepped outside, looking around first, making sure nobody was watching. Then she got into the passenger seat. The vehicle drove away, and without even thinking, I grabbed my keys and followed. What happened next is the reason my family never recovered. Because the place Mom went that night wasn't Michael's house. It wasn't a hotel. It wasn't anywhere I expected. It was a place connected to my father. A place that revealed a secret even bigger than the affair. And when I saw who was waiting for her inside, I realized almost everything I'd believed was a lie. I followed the SUV for almost 20 minutes. Far enough back that they wouldn't notice me. Close enough that I wouldn't lose them. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my fingers hurt. Every possible scenario was running through my head. Maybe Mom and Michael were meeting someone. Maybe it was another secret account. Maybe it was a lawyer. I had no idea. But whatever it was, it had to be important. Nobody sneaks out at midnight for something ordinary. The SUV eventually left town, past neighborhoods, past shopping centers, past places where people actually lived. Then it turned onto a quiet road, one I recognized immediately. My stomach dropped. The road led to a small group of storage buildings and warehouses, one of which belonged to my father. Dad and two business partners owned a warehouse where they stored electrical equipment and supplies. I'd been there dozens of times growing up. The SUV pulled into the lot. I parked farther away with my headlights off. Mom got out. The driver got out. It wasn't Michael. I couldn't see his face clearly. Just a tall man wearing a baseball cap. The two of them walked toward the warehouse. A side entrance opened. Someone inside let them in. Then the door closed. I sat there in complete silence, What was Mum doing at Dad's warehouse in the middle of the night? Nothing made sense anymore. After a few minutes, I got out of my car, moved quietly, crossed the parking lot. There was a small office window near the side entrance. The blinds weren't fully closed,